It started with silence. Not the peaceful kind of silence that calms your heart, but the heavy, suffocating silence that happens when you want to speak, but can't. Every time I tried to open my mouth, my tongue froze. My throat felt tight. My thoughts screamed inside, but my voice refused to come out. I still remember that feeling, standing in front of my classmates, the teacher looking right at me, waiting for me to say something in English, and I said nothing. I knew the words. I had studied them 100 times. I could write them perfectly on paper. But speaking? That was a war I always lost. People laughed once. Then they laughed again. After that, I stopped trying. I used to tell myself, maybe I'm just not made for English. Maybe my accent is too bad. Maybe I'll never sound like them. And with every maybe, I built another wall inside my mind, a wall made of fear. Days passed, then weeks, then years, and English became this monster, a monster that lived inside my head, whispering, "You're not good enough." I remember watching people speak fluently, so naturally, so confidently. I look at them and wonder, how do they do that? How can they just talk without fear? I didn't realize it then, but the real problem wasn't English. The real problem was fear. One day, something happened that changed me forever. It was during a school event. There was a speech competition. My teacher wanted me to participate. I said no. She said, "You're good at writing. Why don't you just try?" I told her, "Ma'am, I can't speak English. I'll forget everything." She smiled and said something that hit my heart like lightning. "You can't speak because you believe you can't. Change the belief, and the words will follow." I didn't believe her at that moment, but that night, her words kept repeating in my mind. So I did something crazy. I took a mirror and stood in front of it. I looked at myself and said, "Hello, my name is," and I stopped. I couldn't even finish my name, but I kept trying, again and again, for hours. I stuttered, I mispronounced words, I laughed at myself, but I didn't stop. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of being judged, because no one was watching. That was my first real English class, not at school, not online, but in front of that mirror. Slowly, something changed. I realized that learning English is not just about grammar or vocabulary. It's about courage, because every word we speak is an act of courage, especially when our heart is afraid. I started speaking small sentences to myself every morning. Today is a beautiful day. I'm learning. I'm improving. These sentences were simple, but they were powerful. They started changing the way I thought. Then I stopped translating everything in my head. Instead of thinking in my language first, I tried to think directly in English. For example, instead of saying in my mind, "Main pani pin jaraha hoon," and then translating, I told myself, "I'm going to drink water." At first, it was slow and awkward, but after a few weeks, it became smoother. It felt like my brain was rewiring itself. Like English was no longer an outside language. It was becoming mine. Then came the hardest test, speaking to real people. My hand shook. My heart raced. But I remembered something. Confidence is not speaking without fear. Confidence is speaking despite the fear. So I forced myself into situations where I had to speak English. At a shop, with a friend, with my teacher. Sometimes people corrected me. Sometimes they smiled. Sometimes they didn't understand. But I kept speaking because I realized that mistakes are not shameful. They are proof of progress. And slowly, The fear started fading away. Months later, I participated in that same school competition I had once refused. My heart was still beating fast. My hands were cold, but I remember that mirror, and I spoke. I wasn't perfect. I forgot a few words. My accent was raw, but I spoke. When I finished, I looked up and saw my teacher clapping. I didn't win a trophy that day, but I won something far greater, my voice. After that, English stopped being an exam subject. It became a part of my life. I started watching English movies, but not just for entertainment. I used subtitles, repeated dialogues, copied accents. I watched interviews of people like me, people who once couldn't speak but never gave up. I listened carefully to how they used pauses, emotions, tone. Every word they said taught me something new, not just about English, but about confidence. And slowly, my fear turned into fascination. The same language that once scared me started empowering me. Then one day, something magical happened. I was walking in a park when a tourist asked me for directions in English. Without thinking, I replied fluently. After he left, I stood there frozen, not because I was scared, but because I realized I didn't think before speaking. I just spoke, naturally. That was the moment I knew I had finally broken free. You see, fear doesn't disappear overnight. It fades, little by little, every time you face it. Every time you open your mouth, even when your voice shakes. Every time you make a mistake and laugh instead of hiding. That's how fluency is built. Not from perfection, but from persistence. People think speaking English is about having the best vocabulary or perfect grammar. But the truth is, fluency is 80% confidence, 20% knowledge. Because even the smartest student can stay silent if they're afraid. So if you're listening to this right now and you're scared to speak, remember, I was once like you, afraid, silent, but that silence became my teacher. Here's what I learned on my journey. 1. Don't wait to be perfect. Start speaking today. 2. Practice in private. The mirror is your best friend. 3. Record your voice. Listen, improve, and don't be ashamed. 4. Think in English. Even small thoughts. Train your brain. 5. Talk to people. Online, offline, anywhere. Every conversation counts. 6. Embrace mistakes. They are steps, not obstacles. 7. Feed your mind English daily. Movies, podcasts, books, YouTube. Surround yourself. 8. Celebrate progress. Every sentence you speak is a victory. Because when you stop being afraid of how you sound, you finally start hearing who you are. One evening, I returned to that same classroom years later as a guest speaker. The same stage, the same audience, the same language. But this time, no fear. I looked at the students and said, years ago, I stood here and couldn't say a single word. Today, I'm speaking to you in the same language that once terrified me. So, never believe you can't, because I'm living proof that you can. The room went silent. Not the fearful silence I once knew, but a silence full of inspiration. After the session, a shy boy came up to me and said, "Sir, I'm afraid to speak too." I smiled and said, "Good. That means you're about to grow." And that's the truth I want you to remember. Fear is not your enemy. It's your beginning. Because if you were never afraid, you would never learn courage. If you were never silent, you would never value your voice. So don't hate your fear. Face it. Stand in front of the mirror. Look yourself in the eye and say, I can speak. I will speak. My voice matters. Say it again and again until your heart believes it. Because the day your heart believes, your mouth will follow. I broke my fear not by studying more, but by feeling more, by allowing myself to be imperfect, by realizing that mistakes are the language of growth. And now, when I speak English, I don't speak with pride, I speak with gratitude. Gratitude to that scared version of me who didn't give up. Gratitude to every failed sentence, every wrong word, every awkward pause, because they built my fluency. So, to watching this right now on the motivation chapters, don't wait for confidence to come before you speak. Speak, and confidence will come. Remember, the fear of speaking English is not a wall, it's a door. You just need the courage to open it. And once you do, you'll realize English was never your enemy. It was always your key to a bigger, braver version of yourself.